Back in 2006 to 2007, everything seemed to be going fine in the banking sector. But three separate groups of investors had their own ideas. After carrying out personal research, they discover how flawed and corrupt the financial market is. In response to the findings, these investors decided to bet against the United States mortgage market. Everyone that hears of this idea finds it hard to believe and advises them against it. Surprisingly, these investors already have their minds made up and are ready to stake everything they have on this idea. Will their predictions ever come to pass? Only time will tell. The scene opens to reveal Jared Venet telling the audience that the world of banking has always been very boring. However, things took a new turn when Louis Ranieri brought forward a different plan for mortgage-backed securities to ensure bigger profits with lower risks since everyone was paying their mortgages. This idea worked like magic and changed the life of bankers more than iPod and YouTube put together. So whether the bankers know Louis Ranieri or not, they should forever be grateful to him. As a result of this innovation, bankers became more wealthy within a short period. Most of them must have wished for this to continue, but fate had something else planned out for them. The boom continued until 2008 when the global financial crisis hit. The mortgage-backed securities metamorphosed into a monster that collapsed the whole world economy. And none of the experts or leaders anticipated it. Venet adds that a small group of individuals saw this coming. Next, the viewers are introduced to the hedge fund manager Michael Burry in his office conducting an interview with a young analyst. Burry states that his wife had earlier advised him to share more. He tells the young analyst that he has had a glass eye since childhood due to losing his real eye to an illness. At the same time, little Burry is seen as a child playing in a football game and being ashamed when his eye falls out. His parents quickly walk up to meet up with him in the football field. They tried to make him feel better by telling him that he played very well, but Burry is not interested in whatever they have to say. Burry continues talking about how awkward his social interaction with people has always been. Burry tells the young analyst that he had always found it hard to even compliment people correctly. Burry changes the topic and starts talking about the economy. He tells the young analyst about how the tech bubble burst in 2001, yet the housing market went up. He hires the analyst on the spot and instructs him to get him a list of the top 20 selling mortgage bonds. Elsewhere, we see a counseling session and Mark Baum enters the room. Baum hijacks the session by telling everyone about his experience with a retail banker. Apparently, he met with a retail banker yesterday, and instead of convincing him to invest in a fund, Baum ends up scolding the retail banker for engaging in overdraft penalties and how his bank will let a customer write 10 to 12 checks before they tell them they are overdrawn. The retail banker makes Baum even more angry by walking out on him. The therapist responded to everything he said by warning Baum to stop coming late for the counseling sessions and hijacking the meetings afterwards. Baum feigns ignorance of the therapist's accusations. Baum dislikes people working in big banks, especially after his brother committed suicide after he was cheated by them. Burry does his homework and reviews the list he asked for. He discovers that the housing market is being backed by subprime loans in which clients are providing fewer returns, and then decides he can bet against the housing market and profit off of it. To properly explain what a subprime loan is, Venet, who is doing the narration, directs us to Margot Robbie taking a bubble bath and drinking champagne to explain that subprime means shit, and that the banks created them to add more mortgages to their plans. Burry's boss Lawrence Fields tries to convince him to focus on stocks and leave the mortgage alone, but Burry refuses. Burry explains to Lawrence that mortgage-backed securities are filled with extremely risky subprime adjustable rate loans. And when the majority of the adjustable rates begin in 2007, they will begin to fail. The problem is that if these rates fail above 15%, the whole bond is worthless. Thinking the bonds are secure, the bankers roll with his bet. Burry's boss Lawrence Fields is distressed by his plan for fear of what it will do to their own business. Burry then goes to multiple banks, starting with Goldman Sachs, to express the idea that the bonds will fail and to create a credit default swap market. Most of the banks find it hard to believe that the investment will work. According to these other banks, the only way that this credit default swap will pay off is if millions of Americans do not pay their mortgages. This is an issue because it had never happened before in history. Venet learns of Burry's dealings and then meets with Baum and his team of investors, Danny Moses, Porter Collins, and Vinnie Daniel, to propose to them the idea of the credit default swap. He explains that all the bad bonds can be put together into CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. A world-famous chef, Anthony Bourdain, is used by the narrator to explain the meaning of CDOs. After ordering fish on Friday, which is the mortgage bond that Michael Burry shorted. But some of the fresh fish doesn't sell. Rather than throwing away all his unsold fish, which is the BBB level of the bond in the garbage and bearing the loss, the chef throws the fish into a seafood stew. By doing this, the old fish becomes a whole new thing. That is a CDO. After Vennet leaves, Baum and his team consider taking his words seriously. Baum's wife, Cynthia, calls him to inform him that the therapist had called her to complain of his behavior again. Baum insists that he did his best by attending the session. He expressed his anger, which she is used to hearing about, but still thinks he should quit his job. While still on the phone with Cynthia, Baum gets into an argument with another man over a cab. He ends the call with Cynthia and collects the cab from the other man. Next, we meet young hopeful investors Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley waiting to meet with someone from JP Morgan Chase. However, they don't get far without having an ISDA agreement. Discouraged, they then find a pitch from Vennet on how the housing market is in a bubble, which Shipley states isn't a completely accurate depiction of how they found out about it. They decide to jump on the credit default swap bandwagon and bring in retired trader Ben Rickert to help them since they are too inexperienced to pull off the trades they need in order to profit from this. Moses and Collins go to a neighborhood to find foreclosed houses. They encounter a renter that worries about being evicted with his son. Moses and Collins enter a home with a past due notice paper in the kitchen, and then a home with an alligator in the pool. Burry is confronted by Fields for his betting, thinking that his plan will fail within 6 years. He and another investor demand their money back, but Burry refuses to give in. Baum and his team dig further into the housing market, meeting with a real estate agent, 2 mortgage brokers, and even a stripper to learn about what sort of loans are given to particular customers, leading Baum to realize that the market is indeed a bubble. By early 2007, it is reported that mortgage delinquencies have reached a new high. Baum and his team are told to give up their swaps by risk assessors. Baum has Daniel tell them to get out of their way. The two meet with Georgia Hale, an officer for Standard & Poor's, and grill her over giving banks AAA percentages on subprime loans. She defends herself by saying the banks would default if they didn't get those ratings, and Baum criticizes her actions, but she fires back by noting that he and his team own multiple credit default swaps. Since her points were valid, it left them speechless. Vennet tells Baum and his team to pull out of their trades, as Geller tells Shipley the same thing, due to mortgage defaults going up. Shipley and the team both express their respective negative views. Rickert tells the guys, as Vennet tells his guys, to go to Las Vegas to attend the American Securitization Forum. Both groups go to Vegas for the forum. Baum spends his time searching for extremely wealthy individuals that can join in their dealings. Shipley meets with a girl he knows named Evie, who works for the SCC, and asks her if the SCC investigates mortgage bonds, to which she says no. Burry becomes increasingly gloomy as he continues to learn that bonds aren't going down and that the whole system is fraudulent. Geller, Shipley, and Rickert then plan to short A.I Creators. They make many deals with many bankers, but as Geller and Shipley celebrate, Rickert reminds them that eventually, the market will collapse and millions of people will be hurt by it. The realization hits the two deeply. Baum meets a businessman named Mr. Chow in a casino and learns that he has created synthetic CDOs, which are series of bigger and bigger bets on faulty loans. Baum slowly but surely realizes the economy is going to collapse. We then get Richard Thaler and Selena Gomez to explain what a synthetic CDO is by comparing it to people making bets on Selena winning at blackjack because her odds are looking good until she deals a bad hand, and everyone loses. By April 2007, everyone is preparing for the inevitable. Burry prevents investors from withdrawing their money. Geller and Shipley go around to the press to warn about the collapse. Baum and his team are told to give up or sell their swaps. As predicted, by the end of 2008, the market economy has collapsed, but all those involved in the shorts profited immensely from the swaps, although none of them are proud of it. Several banks begin shutting down. Burry retires, and one of his analysts takes a new job at a 7-Eleven. The man that Moses and Collins visited earlier is now living out of a van with his wife and son. Geller and Shipley have lost faith in the system. Baum mentions a bailout happening, which Vennet states is true, and that the banks saved their skins and blamed the bad things on immigrants, the poor, and even teachers. Daniel then tells Baum that they should sell their swaps, but Baum thinks it'll make them as bad as the banks, though Daniel says otherwise. Baum then tells him to sell them all. The final text reads that $5 trillion from real estate values, pension funds, 401k, savings, and bonds had disappeared after the collapse. 8 million people lost their jobs, 6 million lost their homes, and that was only in the US. Mark Baum refused to say "I told you so," and his team continues to run their fund together. Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley attempted to sue ratings agencies but were laughed out of the offices. Shipley still runs Brownfield, but Geller moved to Charlotte to start a family. Ben Rickert lives with his wife on an orchard. Michael Burry contacted the government several times to see if anyone would ask him how he predicted the collapse. Nobody responded, but he was audited 4 times by the FBI. He now only invests in water. In 2015, several large banks began selling billions in CDOs. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.